Hi everybody, it's Grandad here again. And what am I up to today? Well, today I'm doing a little follow-up video to my video I did yesterday, which is all about magnetism and electricity. And that was quite a long video, and there was a little bit more to it really that I wanted to tell you about. But unfortunately it went on quite a long time, so I cut it off at where I got towards the end there, where we produced our voltaic pile, volta, and of course we use volts in batteries, and that produces power. And then we went on to Michael Faraday and making his electric motors. Now I've been fiddling as I always do, and I've got a couple more things here I want to show you. Now this here is a thing I made, and I'm hoping you can see it. All it is a jam jar, nothing inside. Well, there's something inside, but I'll just unscrew it and explain what I've got here. All that's inside this jar is a little bit of copper wire and two little bits of tin foil, and they're dangling at the end of this copper wire, and they wobble about, and there they are, not really doing anything much, and they sort of hang together, and they're very light. Now I put them in the jar to stop the wind blowing them about, and I screw the lid on so that they're isolated, I suppose you'd call it, from anything. And I'll hold it up in a minute so you can see it, but I want to show you the top. Now the copper wire comes out the top, and it's bent over, and I've made this little funny little gadget on the end here, this little end on it, just to make a little sort of, well, like a receiver. It isn't really a receiver, but it might help to get what's going on. Now electricity is strange. It's all about us. It's in the air, and it flows through wires and all sorts of things. It'll throw through you if you let it, and it can be dangerous. Now there's another kind of electricity which I didn't mention, which you probably know about, but I like these demonstrations, and it shows this little what they call electrometer working. Now what I've got here is only an ordinary balloon, and if I rub it on my jumper just a few times, as you probably know, this balloon would stick to a wall if I put it there with a static electricity. Now static electricity is very interesting stuff, and you use it in all sorts of things. And I've got a Wimshurst machine there which sort of generates electrons from the air going round and round, and electrons travel along wires into capacitors and linear Leyden jars and produce sparks. Now this thing doesn't produce sparks, but if I bring this balloon now close to this electrometer, if I can hold it up here to show you, if I bring it close, hopefully, it's not working for me for some reason. There you go, you see. Things don't always work, do they? Let's just try a little bit more. You've got to experiment. Now I've discovered that things don't always work the first time, so you have to fiddle with them a little bit, and you know, be persistent. Sometimes they work straight away and you think, oh, that's good. The next time you try it, it doesn't work, and you think, I wonder what I did wrong. But in actual fact, you didn't do anything wrong, and for some reason it didn't work. Now for some reason that's not charging this balloon up quite in the way I thought it would. There we go. Now I got a good kick there now. Now you see those leaves in there? Oh. Now that worked really well, but by the time I'd got it to the camera for you to see, it had gone away. So there we go. I'm charging up the balloon by rubbing it on my jumper, and I'm holding the leaves of the electrometer close by. Now I don't know whether you can see, but those leaves are actually moving apart. They're not behaving themselves quite as they ought to, quite as I expected them to, but they're dancing about in there. And there's no wind in there obviously to move them, but those little leaves are dancing about as a result of static electricity going through this wire from this balloon and moving those little veins. Now that proves that electricity goes through the air, it travels through wires and all sorts of things. Now another thing that I was trying to show you was Michael Faraday's motor that he invented using another piece of apparatus which I've got here. Now, this has been puzzling me for a while why it didn't work. And I've looked at other videos and I've sort of discovered now where it was going wrong. And it's quite interesting. Now, what it is, as I mentioned before, it's a salt dish, a little dish here, and it's full of salt water. And there's a little bit of tin foil here at the side, acting as an electrode. And it's contacting the salty water. Now, from the top here, this is very crude. The one I made before I thought was a lot better, but it didn't work. Now, this one's very crude. All it is a cardboard box and a ruler sat on top with a copper wire going through it. And then I've got all these paper clips and hooks dangling round to make this wire jiggle about. And of course, I've got my neodymium magnets sat in the middle of this dish. Now, when I connect up my 9-volt battery, which I've got here, to these two wires, something remarkable happens. And this is what Michael Faraday discovered 200 years ago when he connected up his electric power to his, and incidentally, he didn't use salt water, he used mercury. Now, although I have got mercury, it's a little bit dangerous mercury. I haven't got a lot of it, so I haven't got enough to fill this dish. But mercury he used. Now, mercury gives off a vapour, which is very dangerous, and so mercury is not a good idea to use. So that's what Michael Faraday used. He used mercury rather than salt water, but it works just as well with salt water. Now, immediately, I don't know whether you can see that. I'll bring you in a little bit closer, hopefully. Bring the camera in a little bit closer. You can see there's an awful lot of bubbling going on. Now, you need that bubbling. You must make sure you've got that bubbling. If you haven't got that bubbling, then your contact's not right. Now, by fiddling around with this wire, hopefully, it should now, if I can just get it in the right place. Now, this has been working, and it has been working. So that proves I've got some current going on there. Now, I'll just put you down for a second while I try and get it to go, because it's a little bit tricky. I mean, these things are a little bit tricky. You have to fiddle with them. But I know I've got it working because there's bubbles going on there. But you've got to get it exactly in the right place. And once I've got it in the right place, if I can do it, there's my bubbling again. It should, hopefully. And of course, when you're on camera and you want things to work for you, they don't always work. Now, the trouble I had with this was because things were dirty. Now, you must make sure that all your connections are absolutely clean and not dirty. And if you can get it in the right place, if I fiddle with this a little bit, hopefully. Now, this has been working way, no problem. But for some reason, at this very moment, it doesn't want to work for me. I got bubbling, so I know there's something going on there. Incidentally, these bubbles are producing a gas, which is not, again, it's not as bad as mercury, but it's not too healthy. But it's, I think it's ozone or stuff like that, because what I'm actually doing is splitting water using electrolysis here. That's what's happening. And for some reason, I'm not getting my revolving going on. It's sort of trying. There's something not quite right. I don't know what it is. Oh, my battery's not quite connected up properly there. Let's just do that a little bit again. Now, this is a nuisance when you want things to work, because what I want to see is bubbling at the end of my wire. Now, for some reason, I'm not getting bubbling at the end of my wire, which I thought I would do. Now, whether that's because it's dirty, I don't know. But before, I had bubbling at the end of the wire. And things started, obviously there's a connection there because I'm getting the bubbling at the other thing. Now, that's annoying. Because this thing really is trying to work, but for some reason Now, it worked straight away when I did it before, and for some reason now I'll just change these leads over. I don't know whether this makes any difference, but maybe the current going the other way will... because current travels through wires in both directions. You can get it to go in different directions and make things turn. Now, I'm really desperate to show you this because it's such an interesting experiment which I'd like you to go and try yourself. And it's relatively easy to do, but as you can see, you do have problems with it sometimes. Now I'll just connect up this wire. These things are very... my fingers are a bit wet, so I'm not getting my... not easy to press my clips. Here we are. I've got a lot of bubbling going on there now. And I'm sure that this is something to do with the fact that I'm not getting a good connection. And it may well be that things have got dirty again already. Now that's a nuisance because I thought I'd clean them all off and got them working properly. But as you can see, the connections really aren't making very good connection here. Now because I've got such a rickety setup, I haven't... now I'm not getting this bubbling. So there's obviously something here not connecting. Now what should happen is this should go round and round, but for some reason, which I just can't figure out, and that's really annoying. I'm very upset about that now because I really wanted to show it. And it worked so well. Just a few minutes ago, only a few minutes ago, I've had it going. And for some reason now, because I'm trying it and do it on camera, it's being naughty and it's not working. But I've got my needle there in the water, and as I say, it was spinning round quite nicely, but for some reason it won't do it today at this moment in time. Now that's really annoying, and I may break off and do this video again. I don't know. I'll have a little fiddle with it, but that's really annoying. I'm very upset about that. There's something here that's I've got my bit of sandpaper here, and I'll just try quickly whether I can do it in time. And this is the trouble, things take time, and obviously the video's going on and people don't want to wait. They get fed up of waiting for things that aren't working. But for some reason my connection here is not connecting properly, and I think that's what the problem is. So just bear with me a little minute and we'll see if we can get this to go, because when it works, it's very interesting. And I'm fascinated with it. I'm easily satisfied with things, as you know, but I find it fascinating when things actually work, and you know, they work in the right way and they do what they're supposed to do. But it might just be that the end of this wire here that I've got isn't it's got a little bit of bit on it or something, I don't know, a little bit of rubbish on it which is stopping it from connecting. Because of course you put in salt in, and salts are corrosive, so it corrodes things very quickly, and you get things corroding up. So there we go. Now then, see if that's going to make any difference. Now I've not got my bubbles. I've not got bubbles quite as I expected. So obviously there's something. There's just a little something there which is not right, which is causing this stupid little thing, for whatever reason, at this moment in time. I don't know whether there's corrosion on my magnets. Let's just take the magnets out a little second. I can't believe that the magnets will go through dirt, but obviously the magnets can get dirty and cause electrical problems. Because when you get problems with electricity, it's usually because something's dirty, and that's usually the problem with it. for some reason, which I don't understand. Now this was working absolutely perfectly, and I'm very upset that it doesn't work for me now. And these little neodymium magnets are very strong, and usually they work very well indeed for any jobs you're doing with them. And I'll just click that down again and connect on my my wires. My little bit of, oh dear, it's so rickety figgity. There we go. That's connected. No, it's no good. There's some reason which I can't figure out, and it's annoying because I've had this working and it really worked well, and it was spinning round and round there like Billy-O and working absolutely perfectly. But because I've put that camera on and set it to run, it isn't working. So I don't know, I'll have another fiddle with it, and if I do get it going and find out what the problem was, I may have to rerun this video, I don't know. But if I don't, and I do put this video up, I'll see how it goes. I don't know, I may do. I want to go on to tell you another little bit of a story about, and I think it was Michael Faraday. He realised, obviously, that electricity coming from his batteries and through his little motor here, which doesn't work for me, that electricity can go through, and you use magnets. Now, you remember I got an electromagnet here, which we did before, using electricity and copper wire and a rod. Now, I don't know whether Michael Faraday sort of realised that you could get magnetism by putting a coiled wire around a piece of metal and putting current through from his battery to produce a magnet. I don't know. But clever people have looked at this and thought, well, I wonder if you can actually get this system of electric power going through copper wire into a coil, making a magnet. What would happen if you put a magnet inside a copper wire and pushed it through? Would you get electricity coming out of the end of the wires? And lo and behold, of course you do. And that's what we've got here. Now this here, what I've got, is a little torch. And these aren't terribly good torches, but they're interesting because it demonstrates this principle. Now I'll take it apart, which may help to show what's inside this torch. Now, as I say, these torches aren't very good. And if I connect it up, I don't even know if you can see it lighting up there. But it does light up. It's a little torch. And how it works is, you've got a magnet, which is floating up and down inside here. Whether you can see that. Magnet going up and down. And it's passing through a coil. A coil of very fine wire, a very long coil of fine wire. And then there's a little bit of clever electronics here to help boost it. Now every time that magnet passes through that coil, it gives a little shunt of electricity. Now that little shunt of electricity goes up into electronics, and it stores it in these little capacitor batteries in here. There's a little capacitor acting as a battery, and it stores the current. So to make this torch work, you have to shake it. Now I bought this torch because I thought it was a good idea if you run out of batteries and you've got a torch that'll work forever. But to be honest, it takes an awful lot of shaking. You have to keep shaking it all the time to get it to work, and it takes an awful long time. And as I've just shown you, you don't get a lot of electricity, but it gives a little shunt. Now what that means is, if you've got a magnet moving inside an electric coil, spinning round or moving, it produces a current. Now I've got another little gadget here which I want to show. Now unfortunately I can't get this going. I am going to work on it, and hopefully one day when I get it working, I'll put it into another video and show it. Now this thing, you may recognize what it is. Now one time on bicycles they used to have dynamos, and they are little reverse electric motors. It's like a little electric motor, but it works in reverse. And inside this container here, there's a magnet and copper wire in a coil. And the bicycle wheel, this goes on the back of the frame of the bicycle, and this arm here goes down and rubs against the tyre. And when it rubs against the tyre, it turns this wheel. Now, if you get this wheel going round fast enough, it will actually produce electricity coming out of this wire. And then, obviously, if you've got a light, which I've got here, and connect onto that, and earth it through onto the frame of the bicycle, it produces a light, and quite a good light. And I've got my, because I've got it working, it hasn't been working very well for me, but I'll just show this, just to prove that this light works. If I connect this up, oh gosh, nothing's working for me today. Put my battery on, and there we go. I've got my little light working. Now that's how the light on your bike would work. It's not a very bright light. In fact, there's only a 3-volt bulb inside there, so you don't produce a lot of electricity. Now this was the way that people went on their bicycles and rode along on bicycles for their light at night back in the day. But they don't use dynamos anymore. I haven't seen a bicycle with a dynamo on it. And they had different designs. Some worked on the wheel, the tyre, like this one worked on the tyre, and some worked on the hub. There was a similar thing on the hub of the wheel, and that generated electricity in the same sort of way. And so that was interesting sort of way to generate electricity. But of course they use batteries now. Batteries are so cheap and so easy, and they give a much better light, and they use LEDs that flash and all that sort of thing. So people on bicycles don't use these steady beam lights so much anymore. They use these flashing lights and different types of lights. So they don't use them on bicycles. But they're interesting. If you see one, pick it up. And what I'm going to try and do is get a steam engine perhaps to drive this. I've got a steam engine and a other little engines that I've got, and I'm going to try and figure out a way. I haven't figured out a way yet of managing to turn this end to make this dynamo work. But that's what they call a dynamo. And obviously this went on to build bigger and bigger dynamos and electric motors. And as I told you about Nikola Tesla, who invented the induction motor, and he improved on dynamos and electric current so that it wasn't DC, and turned it to AC current, which was much more power. And generation of power all over the world using water, turntables, all sorts of things, windmills, is generated by dynamos or alternators, producing current to produce electricity that we use every day. Now that's fascinating, and that really concludes, I suppose, my video about electricity and magnetism and different things. And if you didn't see my other video, if you've tuned into this one by accident, you may not be very pleased because it didn't work. But if you tuned into this one by accident, go and have a look at my other little video on magnetism, the wonder of magnetism. It's really interesting. And look at that big video about magnetism and how it affects the Earth, because it really is important. Anyway, that's enough for me today. I'm sorry my little Faraday here, Michael Faraday motor once again failed me. I still only have a fiddle with it. I don't know why it's not working, but it was working 20 minutes ago absolutely perfectly, and it was absolutely going round like the clappers. But for some reason, just because I turned on the camera, it wouldn't work for me, and I can't figure out why, and I haven't got time to fiddle with it on the camera and waste time. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, put a like up. Maybe you didn't. If you didn't, put no, you didn't like it, put a comment and tell me what you think I did wrong. But try and subscribe to my videos, because I'd like my videos to get out there. And as I say, I always like doing these videos. And so until I find something else of interest, I got lots of things coming up, which hopefully will be of interest. And this is Grandad, as usual, signing off and saying, I'm sorry it didn't all work. But this concludes my little videos about electricity and magnetism, I think. So until we meet again, it's Grandad wishing you all well, and bye-bye now. Bye-bye.